Next we have Murray James from the Food Resilience Network.
Oh, do I get the middle? Okay, fair enough.
Kia ora and welcome.
Morena koutou, Murray James toku ingoa, and this is Ros Rolls and Sarah Butterfield. We're the Food Resilience Network Atamaie. I'll try and be brief. Essentially, the Food Resilience Network, we've explained who we are. Hopefully you're aware of us. We strongly support other submitters in terms of the Ōtākaro Avon River Corridor and the fact that we would like to see action brought forward rather than delayed and pushed back as it currently is. The Ōtākaro Avon River Corridor is a jewel for all of Christchurch, not just for the east of Christchurch, and it deserves a priority in being polished and brought to lustre. Stock banking is enormously important within that because it needs to happen first before others with passion and vision can get in there and start adding some vibrance to that space. So that has our full support in terms of others' submissions about bringing that forward. The Food Resilience Network, we're fortunate to be at what we consider the head of the Ōtākaro Avon River Corridor with our Ōtākaro Orchard space and project. We have struggled somewhat with that project. We've received good support from council. We feel perhaps that central government has, however, forgotten the community-led anchor project in its prime spot right there, and we would ask for council to perhaps consider assisting us as the board in reminding government what an opportunity that is and help us bring it to life. Where are we? The other thing that's important is that the FRN is not just a building. It's not just the Ōtākaro Orchard. We have a whole bunch of activities that we wish to support. We find funding for those, and particularly for our coordinators, Ros and Chesa, to be quite a challenging area. It is true also for many other not-for-profit volunteer organisations that chasing funding it takes an enormous amount of resource, volunteer resource. Becomes quite tiring after a while. We would ask council to consider the manner in which funding is allocated to worthwhile community organisations. We feel that reducing the Strengthening Communities Fund is perhaps not the right thing to do. We rely on that heavily to keep our organisation going while we execute the work for our communities. We're all about the climate change strategy. We like what's being presented there from council's point of view, and we look forward to being a strong part of facilitating the action that's needed in that space. We have a general view that council talks about social enterprise, promotes it quite heavily across a range of organisations that we're collectively involved in. We think that's a bit of a myth, and the way that these organisations are funded needs looking at by council. Take, for example, Avery House, which we're associated with. It can generate about 30% of its operating requirements. The rest of it has to come from somewhere else. What else? That's probably the bulk of what we've got to say in our submission. If you've got any questions, we'll happily answer.
Thank you. Question, Yanni.
Thank you. It just seems to me from your submission that we've basically got a landing that's just in the wrong place. Do you think there's a case to kind of substitute some funding that's going into the red zone further up the Avon Ōtākaro River to help the orchard get developed as a landing or a kind of key anchor point along that corridor?
Sure, if you think of it as a landing.
One that we've been funded for by central government with the landings established in the regeneration plan. Is that the one that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, but in terms of funding priorities, we've got lots of money going in for the Avon Ōtākaro.
Yanni, but I don't want you asking a question that we're not capable of delivering on. So perhaps if you could reframe the question.
Is there anything that you think we could substitute in terms of bringing forward funding for the orchard, given that the orchard seems to be a really good way of dealing with our climate change issue, our resilience issue, our sustainability, and also having some activation along the river corridor.
Yeah, look, we certainly agree with all of those statements, Yanni. In terms of how to fund it, that's probably not something that we can offer comment on to council, but that it needs funding is certainly something that we put out there. We've received good support. We've got a community grant loan that's been provided to us, which helps us get to cold shell. That doesn't help us activate the cafe or provide lease income to our organisation to do its real work. The two key points for me is, yes, it is a landing. There's a bridge there, a new footbridge. There's the band rotunda there. It's a brilliant spot. We wish to activate it, and we will activate it, but we'd love to be able to get there not by having to bake sail it, but by having coordinated, global support in terms of funding to help this board activate the activity, the space, and also up and down the Otakaro Avon River corridor, where our membership organisations are rearing to go and get on with the job.
Thank you very much, and that's very helpful to have such a detailed submission and to have it backed up by a presentation this morning. So thank you very much for that.
Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora. So the next submission is Nigel Tarkovsky and Anthony Wright from the Canterbury Museum. Oh, just Anthony.